But do you think this is saber rattling on the part of Serbia, or do you think they really have the guts to take things a step further? Could there be an actual war? Do you think it's really possible?
Listen, before Banska, before the September 24th attack, when a large-scale armament entered Kosovo, also vehicles, armored vehicles, and a lot more than 30, as reported in the media, paramilitaries, trained paramilitaries, uniformed, entered Kosovo, while the border between Kosovo and Serbia is being overseen from KFOR troops. When we've seen all that happening while KFOR was there, we still have to give it a second thought.
Yeah.
Before, we were still, this is very
NATO
appeasing when we know that NATO is there, and we know NATO is the greatest military alliance in the human history, and it is calming. We know that NATO is there, and whoever enters into or aims to enter into a full-scale war, it will face NATO. But Banska has proved the opposite, unfortunately. Yes. Now I'm not in an institutional position, and I'm more flexible to say this. But this was very alarming.
Yes.
It's positive to see that the KFOR has increased its troops, specifically the British, throughout the border with Serbia, and they're overseeing it more intensively. But not punishing Serbia for what they did, not holding Serbia accountable, not just in dialogue, because in dialogue as well, it's not being held accountable at all, but not being held accountable in larger geopolitical contexts as well, will only encourage Serbia to continue with the same, and not just with Kosovo, but also with the other neighboring countries it has continuously done. So this is counterproductive what's happening, and I hope that maybe behind closed doors there are other discussions going on. But unfortunately, we're seeing that the West is waiting for Vucic's elections in December 17th, maybe after the elections, to come out with a statement on the investigations and with the facts that that Kosovo continuously presented on what happened on September 24th and who was behind.
I actually pressed this point. I was thinking the other day, I haven't heard anyone talking about the terrorist attack in the north of Kosovo for a while. It all seems to have gone rather quiet because, after it happened, there was a lot of talk about it, and the EU made lots of statements, and it demanded this and that. And in an interview with Viola von Krammen, she told me that the EU had prepared a package of measures against Serbia, and this was great. Yet 3 months, almost 3 months, have passed since the attack took place, and nothing is being mentioned. Now, I contacted Peter Stano, the spokesperson, and I said, is the Commission still ready to consider measures against Serbia? He said, yes, the position of the EU has not changed. The possibility of measures is still there if member states see that Serbia has not delivered on de-escalation and has not cooperated on the clarification of the attack in Banska. I asked as well, does the Commission have any more clarity on what happened? It's been 3 months. He said the EU does not investigate the attack, it's the Kosovo authorities. But he says, we have received information on the attack from partners, including Kosovo. I said, well, has Serbia given full and unconditional cooperation? He said, this is for the investigator. The EU is not the investigator. And I was thinking, well, how can you say you want cooperation, but then at the same time you don't have a clue whether they're cooperating or not? Anyway, I said, what stage is the investigation at, to your knowledge, and when can we expect a result? It's not the EU investigates, it's the Kosovo authorities. So I pressed him a bit further. And I said, I know it's not you investigating it, but I would expect you to sort of have an idea what's going on.
As they usually do have an idea about everything.
You seem to have an opinion on everything else. He said, it's not us who'll be commenting on the issue while there's no formal final report. The timelines are in their hands. We've made our expectations regarding Serbia's cooperation clear, and we're following the issue closely, but we will not comment on it on this stage. The issue of potential EU measures against Serbia are reviewed regularly by member states in the relevant working formations of the Council, and so far no decision was taken. Now, you said just now you think they're going to wait for the outcome of the elections, which are taking place in Serbia on the 17th of December. I almost feel like maybe it was a strategic decision from Vučić to call elections sort of around this time, because he knows that any decision on measures would be the end of him, basically, politically.
Yeah, I don't know if it will be the end of him. The EU
Problematic.
sentiment in Serbia is very low.
Yes.
And also Vučić is not only practically but publicly as well working openly with Russia and China.
Yes.
So it's not that they're fully aligned with the EU perspective and with the EU values and with the EU integration agenda as well. We've seen Vučić use these strategies to buy time to avoid a potential agreement with Kosovo. He does this with the previous government. He did this with the previous government. So within 3 years, we have 6 months in the previous elections when Vučić went through. It took him 6 months to form the government. Now I believe we will have another 6 months. So up until April next year, maybe when he will have an official government as well, formation. So he's using this strategy to buy time, to avoid an agreement as well. So next year we'll also see the US go into an electoral cycle. So it will be more and more
elections
as well, the EU. So it will be more and more difficult and more complex for a prospective end to the dialogue, unfortunately. And it's always the region that
suffers.
Suffers and copes with
now,
the consequences.
It seems the EU is trying to... It doesn't want to comment on this situation anymore. It's old news, for whatever reasons, as we've just discussed. But my questions are, to your knowledge, how far is the investigation? What stage is the investigation at? The EU mentioned, Stano mentioned a final report. How long can we expect this? Do you have any information on this?
Actually, I don't have an official information. I'm out of institutions and out of political parties right now. But what I've seen, and with contacts with people and diplomats as well, I know that there is a final investigation report, and it has been delivered. Unfortunately, they're comparing notes with their investigations on the ground, because, they were present. International structures security structures were present in the north, and they are comparing their reports with the Kosovo authorities' report. But I do strongly believe, that they are waiting the timeline of Serbian elections, not to endanger the dialogue as well, and also to, unfortunately and paradoxically or ironically, however we want to call it, help Vučić get over with these elections and wait for his false promises, as always, to deliver after the elections. But I think there will be misled as well, and they will be disappointed as always, because Vučić will continue with the same line of strategy and
also
orientation.
Every day that is wasted in dealing with the outcome of this report, possible measures, dealing with the situation, every day is another day that Kosovo is at risk, that security, that safety in the region is at risk. It's bizarre that they seem to think that is not as important as keeping Serbia happy.